The new vehicle market is oversaturated, making the used vehicle market less desirable. If you're into kissing your cousin, you might like this particular Bronco. Check out this little beep beep here. And with an MSRP just under 54 grand. It's a bargain, huh? And we have the fancy sticker package on this particular one. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Whoa, now we're talking 63 grand. Worth it with the stickers. What say you? The writing's on the wall. So many people are struggling bad. The national average credit card debt is just over $7,200. You know, when you combine that with just the overall cost of living getting totally out of hand and out of touch with reality, people can't afford to buy new vehicles. And when you combine that with the astronomical figures of new vehicle inventory coming available, and that being a compounding issue, they're not going to be selling as much as they get. 11% on a used vehicle purchase. Those savings need to be astronomical for you to even consider buying used compared to new. And here is the Mexico lineup. We have a number of various trimmed Toyota Tacomas sitting here, all unsold. The vast majority of these are 2024 models. Although any dealership will be quick to tell you otherwise, I am confident when I tell you that supply has far exceeded current demand. So they're hoping that that $10,000 inflated price tag with all these additional eye candy goodies will be sufficient to actually move this inventory. I don't think they're going to be so lucky. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So we talk a lot about new vehicle inventory being hugely discounted. We're talking $10,000 to $12,000 off regularly for a number of examples, and incentivized interest rates being pushed just to move that inventory. Well, what does that mean for your trade-in? What does that mean for the used vehicle inventory? Well, those values are going down even more. Throughout the last 2 years, we have seen a 25 to 30% drop in the value of used vehicles. Your trade-in right now is worth pennies on the dollar compared to what it was just a couple of years ago. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to trade in. If you're able to buy a new vehicle or buy a vehicle separately without trading it in and losing your rear end on that value, that makes more sense. When it comes to negative equity, the national average right now is $7,200. On average, people owe $7,200 more than what their vehicle is currently worth. And that is only going to get worse as we teeter deeper into 2025. So now we're seeing people hold onto the vehicles a lot longer. Generally speaking, most Americans will trade out their vehicles every 3 to 5 years. But now people are holding on to it between that 5 to 7 years more on average. And a lot of people are actually holding on to longer than that if they can. They're performing the necessary maintenance, the necessary service on their vehicle, and keeping it up to 10 years if they can. Even the Nissan Frontier here is coming with a pretty good discount. You can get these anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 off pretty easily, and they actually have a reasonable, quote-unquote reasonable, starting price point. You know, a lot of these are right around that $45,000 to $47,000 price range, so you can get it into the high 30s pretty easily if you just walk in and try to strike a deal with them. The vast majority of the examples here, well, it's about half and half at this point, are 2024 and 2025 models. So many Americans go out and buy these wildly expensive large SUVs just like this, whether it's the Nissan Armada here, you have Cadillac Escalades, the Ford Expeditions, you name it. These are just wildly overpriced for what you're getting. Check out the window sticker on this thing. $88,000 for this Nissan Armada Platinum Reserve with intelligent four-wheel drive. How about that? But this right here, ladies and gentlemen, is why so many people are upside down on their loans. This is why. These new generation Toyotas are wildly unpopular for so many reasons, largely thanks to the overly complex platform underneath the hood. You got a twin-turbo V6 tied to a hybridized platform for the Sequoia TRD Pro. But during the pandemic, you would never find a TRD Pro trim Toyota just sitting on a lot. You know, they just can't move this inventory. They're having a hard time selling these brand new. And the Sequoia TRD Pro in particular really is, you know, among the most desirable. And even still, they can't move this inventory used. Now, Jeep in particular is a tricky segment because Jeeps right now have a over 400 days supply. Brand new Jeep Wranglers. They cannot sell this inventory. So I can't imagine going into a dealership with a used Jeep Wrangler and hoping for an exceptional trade-in value, because I just don't think it's going to happen, right? Because they know, they're smart, they can do some homework, and they realize that, well, even new ones aren't selling with huge discounts on them and incentivized interest rates. What makes us think that we can sell this as a used model and get a good residual on it? And personally, I haven't seen this tactic done in a long time, but this particular Toyota dealership here in Casper, Wyoming, will doll up some of their Toyota Tacomas and their Tundras by putting on some aftermarket wheels, maybe a lift kit, and then hiking up the price tag substantially because of it, right? I haven't seen this tactic done too often, especially lately, because it is difficult for people to get a loan for a vehicle like this, because oftentimes when you go get a loan, the bank will look at the VIN number and say, hey, okay, we have a Toyota Tacoma TRD Sport here. They don't realize that they put on $10,000 worth of aftermarket goodies on it, and they rarely take that into consideration, which is why we see so many banks clamping down and declining loans. Throughout the last quarter of 2024, 1 out of 5 auto loans that were applied for were denied. And I can't imagine someone with decent or poor credit getting approved for an inflated loan like this. These are not selling as is at MSRP. There's a $6,000 to $8,000 discount being applied to Toyota Tacomas, all trims, with the exception of the TRD Pro and Trail Hunter. To be fair, they're getting a $4,000 off discount right now. And well, the same goes for Ford Broncos. You go to any Ford dealership right now, and what are you going to find? You're going to find a huge lineup of these brand new, unsold. We're talking these big body Broncos too, to include the Ford Bronco Raptors. Raptors are coming with a $20,000 off discount right now. These, you can easily get 8 to 10 grand off if it meant moving one today. So I can't imagine them getting a good value for this used example here. And here we have the classic lineup of brand new unsold Toyota Tundras, because people are largely unimpressed with this vehicle. Between that huge safety recall of the main crankshaft bearing, that faulty part with debris being left within the engine during production, people have lost confidence in this. It's just too complex for most people who are typically wanting this platform. I spoke too soon. We have the fancy sticker package on this particular one. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. Whoa, now we're talking 63 grand, worth it with the stickers. What say you? Not to mention, when you buy a used vehicle, what kind of APR, what kind of interest rate are you going to expect? The national average right now is just over 11%. 11% on a used vehicle purchase. Those savings need to be astronomical for you to even consider buying used compared to new. The new national average for a new vehicle purchase is 7%. And here is the Mexico lineup. We have a number of various trimmed Toyota Tacomas sitting here, all unsold. The vast majority of these are 2024 models. So here we are, already teetering well into 2025. I would argue that we are going to see so many 2024 models sitting on dealership lots come mid-year. Here's another example over here. We have some Icon wheels on it with some Nitto Ridge grapplers. Definitely giving it a much nicer stance. So they're hoping that that $10,000 inflated price tag with all these additional eye candy goodies will be sufficient to actually move this inventory. I don't think they're going to be so lucky. And I remember everybody clamoring for the brand new Toyota Land Cruiser here, but here we have a few just sitting collecting dust. This is pretty typical. They don't make as many of the Land Cruiser comparatively to the Tacoma there, but we're starting to see these even stack up on dealership lots. These here are the 1958 edition with a price tag between $58,000 and $60,000. And another example here on a new Toyota Tundra, this one coming with Method wheels and open country tires. Not worth the upcharge. Vehicles that are coming with a 0% interest rate or a huge discount, those are generally the vehicles that dealerships can't move. They can't sell that inventory. So what does that mean for that trade-in value or the residual value from that point forward? That means that that vehicle probably won't have great resale value down the road, right? Because if you're getting that great deal of 0% interest rate and $10,000, $15,000 off, well, that means everybody is getting that same deal. You find that really with GM products in particular. This Hummer EV is a prime example of just that. These are coming with a 0% over 60-month interest rate, incentivized interest rate. Many of these are being slashed $15,000 to $20,000 off. Talked about it plenty, but MSRPs have gone up substantially over the last few years. Since 2019, we have seen a 42% uptick in the cost of new vehicles. It's largely thanks to a lot of the trucks you see behind me. Many of these trucks here are highly spec'd, highly trimmed examples, often costing between $80,000 and $100,000. That is really bringing up that national average substantially. The national average for a monthly auto loan payment is $760 for a new vehicle purchase. It's $525 for a used vehicle. And well, it may come as no shock to you, but a study recently reported that 1 out of 7 American families can't afford 2 auto loans with a larger than a $500 monthly payment. So they cannot afford having 2 $500 or more monthly payments within the same household, 1 out of 7 families. That's quite alarming. So at the end of the day, it really just makes sense to hold on to your current vehicle as long as you possibly can. Maintain it properly, do the proper service, and just keep that thing running so you're not wasting an arm and a leg to buy a new example. Because these trucks here, they've gotten out of touch with reality when it comes to the pricing. Right now, we're seeing people with that huge negative equity because 3 to 5 years ago, people were being taken advantage of during the pandemic. They were getting charged markups. They were getting charged ADMs, these overpriced protection packages, inflated loans left and right being issued 3 to 5 years ago. Now when they come in to try to trade in that vehicle, it makes sense that they're totally upside down on it. And it's a total shame. We talk about it plenty, but the cost of living has gotten out of hand for most Americans. The cost of rent, the cost of mortgage, your insurance, homeowners insurance, the cost of groceries, everything, you name it. And insurance premiums are a huge pill to swallow nowadays. The national average right now is just under $2,700 for an annual premium. For an annual household premium for full coverage is just under $2,700. That keeps going up. That has over doubled over the last 2.5 years, and we project that to continue increasing at that compounding rate. The new vehicle market is oversaturated, making the used vehicle market less desirable. There are currently just over 3 million brand new vehicles available within the US right now. There's just over 2.25 million used vehicles available. For context's sake, there are over 400,000 more vehicles available, new vehicles available at the start of 2025 compared to the start of 2024. And to go one step further, there's 1.4 million new vehicles more available here in the beginning of 2025 comparatively to 2023. That's huge. We've seen a 120% growth rate over the last 2.5 years of new vehicle inventory. That's astounding and unprecedented. And although any dealership will be quick to tell you otherwise, I am confident when I tell you that supply has far exceeded current demand. I think it's really tough for a lot of people because during the last 4 to 5 years, a lot of Americans got used to buying a vehicle and then maybe driving it for a year or two and then being able to trade it in and get dang near what they paid for it because that supply and demand was really off-centered, but not anymore. That is not the case. You will lose money for sure, and rightfully so, right? These are depreciating assets at the end of the day. Let's remind ourselves of that. But I think a lot of us have been spoiled. Dealerships for sure have been spoiled. I mean, that goes without saying. They got used to just treating you and I like another number. Treating you and I just like another brick in the wall. If you didn't buy it, the next guy in line would get it. And honestly, I feel bad for any dealership trying to sell a used Ram pickup truck right now. Rams in particular have a 460-day supply on new vehicle inventory, meaning new Ram dealers cannot sell their brand new trucks. So how in the world are they supposed to sell a used example? It's just not going to happen unless it comes with a huge, huge discount. I would be very nervous if I owned and operated my own dealership right now because the writing's on the wall. So many people are struggling bad. The national average credit card debt is just over $7,200. When you combine that with just the overall cost of living getting totally out of hand and out of touch with reality, people can't afford to buy new vehicles. And when you combine that with the astronomical figures of new vehicle inventory coming available and that being a compounding issue, they're not going to be selling as much as they get. And ultimately that's going to lead to layoffs of people building these at the assembly lines, the production plants, and nobody wants to see that. But the writing is on the wall. People cannot afford to come out here and buy brand new vehicles, especially at the rate at which they've been producing them. Heck, that's why we've seen such a huge uptick in the repossession rates. Just in 2024 alone, we've seen an unprecedented growth in repossessions take place of over 23%. Pretty wild. I personally don't believe trade-in values are going to get any better, especially throughout 2025. They're going to get worse before they get better. I can confidently tell you that. So if you're going to trade in and you need to trade in that vehicle, sooner the better. But again, if you are in a position where you can keep that and use it as a secondary vehicle, that trade-in is not going to help you. Oftentimes during the pandemic, you were able to get a little bit more of a credit. You get a little bit more savings because often the dealership would ask you, hey, do you have a trade-in? Because then that would give you an additional trade-in allowance, right? They would use that because they can sell that inventory right afterward. They can restock their supply, which was dwindling, of course, during the pandemic. I do firmly believe that there should be a large price gap between a new vehicle and a used vehicle. That used to be the case, right? Those were the good old days. Not so much in recent years, of course, because of the whole supply versus demand bit of it. We saw so many lightly used vehicles, still used, coming in at a very close to MSRP price tag, sometimes even more if it was a desirable trim, right? Which I don't think that should ever be the case. Now, people will often ask, what does a true car market crash actually look like? In modern era, I believe it's going to be 10 to 15% below invoice pricing. Invoice pricing is technically what the dealership pays for the vehicle. There's some additional fees included within it that a dealership gets a benefit from, but really invoice pricing isn't far off from where they can actually benefit. Still, selling the inventory, selling these allocation helps their reallocation rate, so selling metal is always a good thing, but 10 to 15% below invoice is what I believe a true market crash will look like here in 2025. Unfortunately, it feels like owning a new vehicle has become a luxury. If you look at the price tags of so many of these brand new Ford Broncos behind me and the Ford Expeditions here, many of them are over $80,000. Many of these Broncos over 65 grand. They priced their target demographic out of the market. And if you're into kissing your cousin, you might like this particular Bronco. Check out this little beep beep here. And with an MSRP just under 54 grand. It's a bargain, huh? Or perhaps you're into kissing your sister. Check this one out. 35 grand. The thing people don't talk too much about is the wholesale market. The wholesale market has always been kind of a safety blanket for dealerships. You know, if they take your vehicle in on trade, they know that they can always wholesale your vehicle or auction it for what they gave you for trade-in value. But just this last year, the wholesale value has gone down 18% across the board, across all vehicles, 18%. So I'll wrap up the video there, guys. Let me know what your most positive experience was with the dealership throughout the last few years, and conversely, tell me what your worst experience was. As I post a lot of these videos, I do get a lot of you coming up on mic, coming up in the comments, telling me about your awful stories, and I very rarely will hear about a positive story. Good dealerships do exist. They're out there, and they have been out there throughout the pandemic years too, I would argue. But unfortunately, greed did get the best of a lot of them, right? Let's face it. But let me know what your good and bad stories are. I truly am curious to hear it. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune in these videos. If you find any kind of value in it whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a lot, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Until next time.